This one's recording. We're in.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Sam.
Okay, I'll introduce you. Okay. Hi, this is Sam Taggart with Can't Knock This, and I'm here with Kristen Ludwig with Active Pest Control. He was one of the top first-year managers in 2015, and then this last year, his region finished with over 14,500 accounts. And just in 3 years, he's been able to build that. So he's one of the youngest. He's only 23, and he's been able to build one of the fastest growing regions in the pest control industry, I believe. So welcome to the show.
Thanks.
Glad to have you, man. So tell us a little bit about how you kind of got into this, how you got started.
Yeah, so it started in high school. I was in a marketing club. I was just fascinated with it. My parents were psychologists, so I kind of thought that way anyways, but I love business. And I had my dad who traveled, was in business. I really looked up to him. My uncle's in sales. I really looked up to him. So in college, I was at a career fair, had an opportunity to do business-to-business advertising sales. It was a coupon book that was distributed to all the students, and it needed to be filled with advertising. So my uncle, my dad, my family encouraged me to go for it. Spent the whole summer cold calling, going business-to-business. Was completely obsessed with sales, read all the books.
Well, your parents are in psychology. It's like
Yeah.
You're just like, I've been ingrained with this since a young age.
And funny enough, they've given me almost just as many tips on sales without knowing any sales, just because they're psychologists.
Yeah.
So I ranked number 2 out of 600 interns that summer, and it was such a really cool feeling, not knowing that I did well, but because I was finally really good at something. Because my whole life I was trying to get good at guitar, then skateboarding, then tennis, then football, and I was never the best. But then, I want to get emotional right now, because just knowing that you found your calling was really special. So I did that. Was going to go into corporate sales to do business to business, and I worked for Paychex in an internship in town. They're a payroll processing firm. And I was working with them in the spring, and they were going to have me during the summer, my whole senior year, and then they're going to have me work afterwards. But I got a call 2 days before the end of school from my manager saying there's a new zone manager, a new budget, so they had to cut me out for the summer and take me back on for the fall. And I was like,
oh, man.
All my eggs were in one basket. So I chose to do pest control as a fallback, just because I want to get out there and be face-to-face with people.
Being in North Carolina, who connected you to Active? Like, how did where was that connection? LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So you were a recruit from LinkedIn.
Right.
And now you've become a connoisseur of LinkedIn too, right? Like you use it and recruit that way too.
Yeah.
Cool.
And it's all about providing value to people, which we can get into later.
Yeah, we'll get into in a minute. So kind of go through some of the highlights. Your first year, 2015, you were one of the top pound for pound rookies to ever exist at Active. Since then, it's been broken, but and then you've kind of had a slingshot career so far. Tell us kind of the journey.
Yeah, so I remember my first time selling pest control. I shadowed Thomas Wood, who's a complete legend, and I loved the man to death. He started off as a service pro. And then I don't quote me, but he went from 200 to 350 to 500 to 700 accounts, and now the company has a Thomas Wood Award for the most improved rep. So I go to shadow him, sells the first door. The dude's a legend. Sells the first door. They invite me inside. We do the deal at the dinner table, and it completely threw off my idea that I had of door-to-door sales. I thought doors would be getting slammed in my face all the time, but then that happened. And I was like, man, I got this. And I totally fumbled my pitch with the next door. And I was like, man, I want you to go sell. I think I can do this. And I sold 2 accounts that night. And then I sold 8 accounts the next day. And then the next...
second day, 8 accounts.
Yeah. And then the next week I had 4 back-to-back double-digit days. 10, 11, 13, and then 10.
Your first full week, really?
Yep.
How many you finished with that week?
I don't remember.
A lot, though.
Probably.
So in 12 weeks, you did 396 accounts.
Yeah.
That's insane. I can't even fathom that. I mean, I did 403 alarms, so I don't know how the comparison is really, but you got to be throwing in to do it that fast.
Right.
10 spots, 12 spots.
I've never been more dialed in my life.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Literally.
So what why do you think, obviously you're a success in this whole internship thing. You had this power to win kind of mentality, and I'm sure that kind of played in. Mm-hmm. What do you kind of attribute some of your fast track success to?
Just a hunger to learn is really the number one thing. When people come to me like, hey, how can I get better at sales, recruiting, management, I just tell them to download Audible and start paying for audiobooks. Like I've listened or read over 40 books, and I get a lot of knowledge from that. YouTube videos, mentors. I like to say big people stand on the shoulder of giants, and that's all. If I've ever done anything good or big, it's because I've learned from bigger people.
So who do you feel like within the industry and outside the industry have been some of your bigger influences on you?
Yeah, outside the industry, my parents have been huge influences. Also, my uncle, he's been in medical device sales his entire life. He's told me some of the best nuggets I've ever taken with me and applied. And all my managers throughout every single internship or job I've been in have been phenomenal. Like, I'm so humbled to learn from all these people at such a young age.
Who do you look up to most in the pest control space?
In the pest control space, that's so tough. There's just so many. I honestly look up to my friend Damon the most.
Really? And he's one of your business partner kind of
people,
right?
we basically were partners in the pest control industry, and he's really the real reason why we've grown as a network so quickly. He's just an incredible leader, an incredible recruiter.
Cool.
Incredible salesman.
I'm excited to meet him. Is he coming to Door-to-Door-Con?
Yeah, he's going to come.
He's coming.
I'm dragging him along. We're going to go ski, and I want him to do this someday.
Yeah, get him on a podcast. That's cool. So let's kind of dive into, this last year you guys finished number 2 in the cup. Almost won the cup. Last year, did well. I don't like the almost lost by 4 accounts. Technical, I'm just kidding.
You know what's funny though is I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah.
Because it makes me hungry. It makes me really hungry.
Next year you're gonna be like coming with vengeance.
Because the thing was like, if you win, it's like, all right, I did all the coolest things you can ever do, and there's nothing to reach for anymore. It's the climb that's the best.
It's 100%. It's like, I made it. No, I felt the same way. I'm like, I finished top. Now what?
Yeah.
So I would recommend finishing second.
Right.
Not like for the pride, but for the hunger. Because like, how much more money will you make next year and the next year just to go frickin' prove that you can do it?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's dive into how do you go in 3 years from 0 to 14,500 accounts?
Right.
And because I think that's where, being so young in North Carolina, where we're not in the Mecca, people are like, oh, I can only recruit return missionaries. I'm sure most of your people are return missionaries, right?
Okay, that's the really funny thing, because after I was a really good sales rep, so they wanted me to come back, and I was like, well, shoot, make as much money as I did in 3 months before I go into corporate sales. Why not? And they're like, well, you can hop on a team and make a really tiny override, or you can make this much override if you recruit a team. So I was like, why not try, right?
Yeah.
So I gave it a shot, and I was really fortunate enough to partner with Damon, and me and him started doing recruiting meetings out of like basically our dorm room, like out of our apartment, having people every single Friday. And then we took that and we moved it into the Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation that our school had. And then literally the next year we had an office in North Carolina.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So let's go through kind of what were some of the tactics you used to kind of get this traction, momentum, and put your name out there for Aptive?
I don't know what it is, but me and him just have like a sickening work ethic. And I think it's a mix of work ethic and creativity and taking action that will make you become a good recruiter. And I think same's kind of the same in door-to-door, because if you come across as the same sales rep they've seen the past 20 times and you're not creative, you're not going to capture their attention. Yeah. But you need to work really hard and you need to execute.
Cool. So one of the things that let's just talk college-based, because a lot of your guys probably came from the college, right?
Yes. So
yeah, it's like something popped there.
I had people high up in my company that completely doubted that I'd be able to recruit anyone, let alone a team. And they like told me that to my face, not to like demean or anything, but probably to make me hungry. But they said no one's ever recruited anybody outside of the bubble of Utah and Idaho.
Yeah, no, it was funny because I was talking to, who was it? Maybe James Graves. a while back, and he was like, it's crazy to see this year how many recruits are coming out of Utah versus in Utah. And he's like, we want to kind of keep these people a secret. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he has a team up in Northeast, I think, and then there's a group, your group in North Carolina that he said's like way good. So that's cool.
So the Northeast is part of us as well. Oh, that's
part of your group. Yeah. Oh, okay.
Unless he's got a really, really, really secret group.
Yeah, no. Okay, so that's the same people. That's awesome.
Maybe.
So now
James Graves is a mysterious man.
Yeah,
he's a beast, dude.
He's a beast. So how'd you do it? So, you know, everybody's like, nah, you can't get people outside the bubble.
They were literally like, they were planning for us to fail, basically. But they were supporting us. But they were so skeptical about it.
Yeah. Because it's new to them. They're like, Idaho or Utah or die.
Yeah.
Right?
And then we were lucky enough to have like some of the corporate people fly out and interview all our guys. And that was kind of the point. They were like, all right. You know,
they got some studs here,
Yeah, but I don't think they're expecting us to put on over 5,000 accounts or have a team go to the Final Four.
So the reason people probably say that is because they think, you know, the perception of door-to-door outside of Utah is also different. Mm-hmm. So how do you overcome this? Hey, we're going to go knock on doors. And they're like, oh, I'm going to get a real job. I'm studying to be an engineer. Like, how do you kind of overcome that perception?
I'm super lucky to have ended up with Active because they have a national brand and they've won a lot of great awards and been on talk shows. And it would be really hard to get someone involved with a small company that wasn't big, didn't have a big footprint, or had many awards won.
So just you kind of leverage some of the awards, because I'm sure most of them have still never heard of some pest control.
Because the legitimacy is the number one thing we constantly battle with. And people call me stupid for it, but I leased a $100,000 car. I bought a boat. We got an office we had to pay for the first year. Like, me and him put all of our money into this thing just to make it legit. And that's the only reason why we were able to recruit a lot. Because it's not really competitive outside of the bubble, but you really struggle with
legitimacy factor.
And we've had people go and try to move somewhere or recruit out of different markets, and they can't do it because they don't. It's that first year is tougher than anything, tougher than recruiting out here, because you got to dig your teeth in and get those first few people. But then after that, once it's legit, once you have people telling their stories who were successful, then it just really grows super fast.
Yeah, because they're all sitting there like, dude, I just made way more money and I knocked doors.
And they're very grateful for it because...
Yeah, they're not probably this entitled, like, give me some sign-on bonus or whatever. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
Dude, that's so nice. So let me ask you this. So you go into the campus, you get your office space, you get your momentum going. What were some of the things, like, how do you approach it? Like, how do you get creative to kind of capture people's attention? Yeah,
so creativity is, like, my favorite thing. I feel like if I'm not moving forward creatively, it's really hard to constantly work hard. Do you kind of feel the same way?
Oh, yeah. You need something to mix it up.
Exactly. Variety. Yeah. So I love to leverage technology. That's just like my thing. I know we were talking about Bitcoin earlier, and I was talking to you about all these crowdfunding technology sites. That's kind of my groove. So a big tool for us was an app called Point Drive. Rest in peace, because LinkedIn acquired it and like totally demolished it, and no one has access to it anymore. Really unfortunate story. But it's basically like a PowerPoint presentation that you can just text or recruit a link to, and they click on it, and then they see not like necessarily an active branded presentation, but like our story at that university or at the other universities we're at. And then I get an email whenever I see that person click on it, so I know when to follow them up with.
Okay, so you know who's interested, who's not.
And it's that thing where, you know, you do that first cold contact, and it's just kind of this strange, like, who's this dude talking about me going door to door? I'm never going to text this guy back.
So you would send him something via LinkedIn, or just text it to him?
Literally text them a link of, like, a presentation. And
how would you get their number? How, you know?
Just by cold contact.
Hey, what's up, man? What's your number? Oh, I'll send you something.
Then text them the link and try to get an appointment with them on the spot. But if not, text them after you've texted the link, just so they get more of an understanding about it.
So it kind of warms them up. Yeah. And then you know who's actually, like, curious. And then you kind of try to set up something. Yeah,
and I like to look at recruitment not as this, like, just get people in, do the meeting, and sign them. I like to look at it as, like their customers, and I'm taking them through a customer experience. Mm-hmm. And you got to think of how their path looks and how their experience looks from the very beginning. Yeah. You put yourself in their shoes. If I never knew about this and someone approached me about it,
Yeah.
How would I want it to go? Because I've been approached by like the weird like Amway dudes who totally like butcher a sales
it's like,
pitch.
you want to sell this and sell your soul to the devil, and you got to get 1,000 people.
So I thought to myself, how do I be like the opposite of that guy?
Yeah.
You know, to where they make the decision. Because I think the number one thing in recruiting is if you tell them what's going to benefit them, they won't listen to it. But if they say it, it's true. So I try to bring them through an experience and really get to know them and find their hot button. But then I want them to tell me why the opportunity is going to benefit that hot button.
That's cool. So, you were talking to me about this like little card thing too. Yeah. So you give them value. So one of your principles is like, you need to add value first. It's kind of the jab, 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 right hook. So
perfect.
How do you, what are some of your jabs that you found have been effective to add value to them first to kind of help create that experience that you're talking about?
Right. So this is just one example, a little business card I made. It just says free $20 grocery gift card basically. So whenever I'm out tapping shoulders on campus, it's not just some weird conversation with a stranger and they're never going to text me back because they've never heard about the opportunity. They're going to come into the office to get their $20 gift card, and they text me to set up that time. And I'll give it to them regardless, but it's an opportunity for them to check it out and for me to talk to them.
Yeah, it's like almost like a lead. It's like, I'm willing to invest $20 in 1 out of 4 I close,
right? And
then 1 out of those 4 come out for the summer. So maybe it's like per recruit it costs me $200 in gift cards.
Yeah.
And
I never think about ROI. I know the best investment is the team. So, I have a boat that many people go out on all the time.
So you're creating experiences.
Yeah, and during the summer we'll talk about leadership, but every weekend just about I try to have like a really epic experience for all my guys.
Cool. So what are some of the things you've done? Let's kind of transition to that. So running a team of 30, 40 guys or however many, you gotta do something right to get them to do the production that you've done.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things you've kind of done to kind of create that whole customer experience after you sign them, bring them out? Like, I mean, these guys, it's like might be their first time away from home, or they're like, who is this scam company? They're gonna ship me out to who knows where. Yeah,
and we have drop off like you would not believe. But everyone who comes out really has a positive experience. Even the guys who go home, they realize their faults. They say it's a great learning experience. Or even the guy who made $6,500 on my team and was the worst performer, he like gave me a hug and like opened up that this was the best thing he's ever done this past summer. So everyone's super grateful for it. But as a leader, it was a huge challenge my first year. It was the most humbling experience of my life. I've never had so much of a shock.
And it's funny you say that because it's like you did 5,100 accounts, or how many your first year managing, which most people can't say they do that in a year doing pest control. Like companies can't even say that.
Yeah.
But you still got your teeth kicked in. It sounds like
Yeah.
Numbers wise, from the outside, it looks like it.
Yeah.
It looks great.
That's so funny in business. Is like any achievement or any business that's doing well, you look at it and you're like, well, look at what they've done. But no one sees the blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah.
Or the bottom side of the iceberg, basically.
So let's kind of dive in. What were some of the main pain points, lessons you learned your first year that you're like, holy cow, hardest and most challenging thing in your life?
Yeah.
What were some of those things?
I basically learned that not everyone is me.
It's a good point.
Yeah. So my first year selling, I'd be up at like crack of dawn, get the workout in, like drink like a kale smoothie. Everyone made fun of me for that.
Yeah, they're like eating their freaking tacos and you're over there drinking kale.
Yeah.
You're just doing things totally different.
I'd be OCD to get on the doors like super early. My whole first year I ran door to door. It was before the scooter and Segway days.
Did you get a scooter?
No, I got a Segway.
Yeah. Inspiring, dude.
Yeah, but there was not a moment I was walking door to door my first summer. I just literally ran through the grass.
Well, that's kind of how I was before I got a scooter. Dude, I got a scooter in 2012.
Mm-hmm.
And no one, I think I like pioneered that shiz. Because 2012, I get a freaking Lightning McQueen scooter and everybody's like, holy crap.
Can you do like the 360?
Oh, dude. Not like full jump 360 land, but I can do it like fun little thing. But
I'd buy from you if I saw that.
Oh, yesterday I was out knocking and I did the like my right approach.
If you do something fly, like I see you come in, you're doing something fly.
Easy sell.
Yeah.
So, yeah, keep going. You're running door to door. People are probably like, what?
My lunch was like 10 minutes in my car, and I'd pee in bottles in my car, and I'd knock till like way later than everyone else.
So how do you find a gem like you? You know what I mean? It's kind of like your manager, whoever recruited you, was probably like, who is this guy? You know, you threw in freaking 10 spots your second week like no other. So that's crazy. So you realized not everybody operates like that. Yeah. And how did you realize that?
I think I was kind of forcing people to try to operate like that, and then I'd get frustrated if they didn't. And I started reading some material on leadership, and by no means was I a great leader my first year. But what I learned is that I was trying to really focus on the bottom guys doing super well. But it ended up to where I was calling them out too much, and I was just giving them too much negative feedback. And they say you should give someone positive feedback 3 times, but in individual circumstances before you give one negative feedback. And that you should do one every single time, to where it's not this, hey man, you're so great at this, but, just separate. But give them 3 before. That's something I learned after that I was never doing. So the bottom guys really started to not like me. And then they were kind of lobstering.
I was gonna say, did they create like a mutiny?
Yeah, and then I kind of realized what happened. I tried to repair the situation, but I ended up not signing some of those guys back on, and my retention wasn't great for signing guys back on. So I learned some incredibly important lessons about leadership, especially that with the bottom third, you kind of want to let them do their own thing. But if it gets too extreme, have conversations, or if the worst comes, let someone go who's really being that lobster trying to drag people down. But to focus on the middle third of people, the middle third of performers who could take it to the next level and are actually motivated to do so, won't have their feelings hurt by it. And let the top people do their thing. Put all your focus as a manager on the middle.
Yeah. No, because it's crazy. It's like I always said, it's easy to get a 100 account rep to 200. It's harder to get a 50 account rep to 100. We're getting 2x, but I would rather take the 100 to 200. Yeah. Or whatever the number metrics are. But it's so funny because we naturally have this empathy blood in us. And we sit there and we feel bad. Right. Because they have the best sob stories. What makes a good news story? What makes a good, American Idol? Well, when my dad died, and I had this lump sum, and they tell you this sad story, and you're like, oh my goodness, and we just buy into it. Yeah. Well, the problem is, as leaders, we buy into these, like, my foot hurts, and my tummy, and my mom, she's calling me, and you're like, oh, it's okay, and you're like, oh my God.
But on the flip side of the coin, so many managers spend time shadowing the top reps, but, like, when I go out and shadow my top reps,
they're like,
good job, dude. That's a good door. And they're like, I know it's good.
Yeah, it's like, I got
Sweet,
this.
Cool. All right, see you.
No, it's important to give like so much praise, recognition, and put them on the pedestal. Yeah. But other than that, it's like, get out of their way. Right. And let them grow. Let them spread their wings.
I think a huge thing was not giving the low performers praise or recognition when they had a good day.
Yeah, because they never felt hope in a sense. Because you're thinking, dude, this isn't that hard. Yeah. I guarantee you that goes through every first year or second year management. It's like, I still do it. It's like, guys, this isn't rocket science. Yeah. I'm throwing in 10, 20 a day. Right. You can't do one? Yeah. It's like.
Yeah. You can, but that's kind of, I didn't tell them those things directly, but that's kind of the leader I was in the beginning. And looking back at it and learning the things I have about, giving people 3 good recognitions before some constructive criticism, I never did that. For the little guys, it was always just constructive criticism, or I'd anonymously call out, there's a rep that did this yesterday, anonymously in the meeting. I wasn't calling them out directly, but still, it didn't make them feel good.
Yeah. So then they kind of almost resented you as their leader, and then they're like, I'm not working for that guy again. He's a freaking dick.
Right. So, but the other end of that is I ran a really tight ship, and we had a high-performing team. So what I learned to do my next year, we were fortunate enough to even go to the Final Four of the Cup my first year. And what I learned the next year is how to run a tight ship but how to give praise to everyone, how to have open conversations, all the things, leaders learn eventually.
So let me ask you this. If you had to put it in a nutshell, in giving people listening to this running their first year, because there's so many people that are just finishing the summer right now that are going to be like, I'm going to manage, or I'm going to run a team, or I want to be like Christian, or whatever. What advice, I guess, directly, what advice would you give them right now? You're like, never do this, or don't do this, or do this.
Yeah. Give people 3 instances of positive feedback before you really confront them. And like you told me, and like I've heard from a lot of other people, ask to have an open conversation.
Like ask for permission.
Yeah, kind of explain what you framed out to me.
Because like when you're going to go direct, like you have to be able to have the big boy conversations. And
I think so many people avoid that.
They avoid it.
I totally avoided that my first year. And I do this stupid thing where like I'd indirectly call them out in the meeting. And then everyone would know who that was instead of having like an open conversation.
Yeah, it's like, hey, can I pull you aside?
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, look, man. Like, I'm not gonna expose you. I get it. Something's going on.
Yeah.
Do I have your permission to speak openly with you and give you some good feedback?
Yeah.
And I help you with your blind spot.
Yeah, and I think if you do that well enough, you'll improve the culture on your team.
100%.
Yeah.
Because the culture is simply like, he's here to keep me accountable.
The culture is an accumulation of every single person's attitude.
100%.
Yeah.
So let's kind of move on. So
if 2 guys really hate you, that's not helping the full culture.
It's not. So you lost pretty much everybody but 2 guys.
4 guys.
4 guys.
And one was my brother, so that doesn't help.
Yeah, so we'll call it 2.5, 3.5.
I made him do it.
Oh, yeah. You better come. So then this last year, the next year you learned and you retained. You're retaining basically 90%. All but two.
Yeah.
So it's completely flipped.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the things that you've done this year to really retain? And obviously you're like, man, I learned the lesson. So like, let's go opposite perspective. And one of the things you were talking about earlier was just casting a better long-term vision, because so many people in this job, I think, basically treat this as like, oh, it's a summer internship one time and then keep going back to school. You're recruiting a lot of college kids, probably your age, around, young talent. And I'm sure a lot of the people, they just were like, oh, that was a cool experience the first year. And then they kind of just moved on to do whatever they were doing, right? Where I think you were saying you kind of had a shift this year to where you've been able to cast a better long-term vision.
Yeah.
And what are some of the things you've done to do that? And tell me about that.
So there's kind of a space out there where there's all these reps and Cutco, or they sell books door to door, or they do advertising like I did. So I've been fortunate enough to get some of those reps from other companies, as well as just get some fresh college students who have never sold before. A lot of the people who work for other companies, they did a year with this company, and then now they're with me. And then they kind of want to go on to like corporate sales the next year. So what I learned to do after my first year, besides being a better leader, was to tell them, hey, the career's right here.
Yeah, getting them to see it's like, this is a real job.
Yeah.
Like, this is like, think about it.
Yeah.
You could go make $100,000 in this. You don't need to do corporate sales where you're going to hate your life like I did at Paychex.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and I enjoyed corporate, but I couldn't like express myself and be creative, and I couldn't go talk to people. It was like just at a desk cold calling over and over and over again. So I try to not necessarily like hype up Aptive and talk about recruiting, like that gets mentioned, but I want them to bring that up. I want them to ask me. Like I said, if I tell them, they're going to tune it out, but if they inquire, they're more interested. What was I saying?
No, so it's just basically you're trying to have them see the longer term vision and stick versus like just want to move on.
Right. So I paint a picture of a career, and I paint a picture of freedom.
Yeah.
Because all these people who are wanting to go work for, Fortune 500 sales companies, which I'd be more than happy to give them a recommendation. I have to 2 different people who have chosen that route, and I'm happy they did. And they said the direct reason was because they went with us. I've had 2 people go to Bloomberg International for career in sales. And one lady, Sabrina Simmers, who's on my team, totally kicked butt and like beat half the people on my team.
Really?
Yeah, she was awesome. she went to Bloomberg and she called me on the phone. She's like, hey, I just want to thank you, for having me on the team. The CEO of Bloomberg, whenever he stopped through, he pointed at me out of like 20 other interns and said, that's the bug lady. And he's super impressed that she did that.
Okay, stop, because it just...
Yeah.
We got to check this. So, remember where you're at.
Yeah.
Because when it turns off... Hold on, let me make sure. Make sure we got this. Card is full. Shit. I'm gonna delete all these.
No worries.
Put them all on this thing. Yeah, just remember Bloomberg lady. How do you feel like it's going so far?
Awesome.
Dude, you're doing great. It's fun, huh?
Got the camera on.
Rolling. And we are rolling. Okay.
Yeah, so the CEO of Bloomberg points her out as the bug lady and was super impressed with that. Out of all these interns, and he's the CEO of Bloomberg. So it really is this very incredible resume opportunity for a lot of people who are looking to go into corporate sales, but the challenge for me is to keep them here. So I really have to paint a vision not only of the income you're able to earn and kind of the entrepreneurship aspect, but also the freedom. Having 8 to 9 months off to do whatever you want while you kind of make your own schedule is really a special opportunity, but it's really hard to get that in people's heads because so many people, they're kind of like morphed by their parents to think, benefits, pensions, which don't exist anymore, get that 9-to-5 job, get the big company name. They kind of have that in their head, but more and more, because pensions, Social Security don't exist, 401k matching isn't as good, a lot of young people, millennials, are getting into entrepreneurship, or they're not staying at companies very long. So I encourage people to just try it out for a year. You're going to make the same amount of money or more anyways, but just try out the entrepreneurship thing before you do the 9-to-5 the rest of your life.
Yeah, no, that's a really good approach. So the last little bit, I want to dive into kind of the physical aspect, which obviously are sexy beasts. Anybody listening to this, there's a single lady out there. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just playing. No, but like you have a this passion.
Can't imagine what you call James Graves, and he's
dude, he's ripped. No, but like you talked about it a little earlier, drinking kale juice or whatever, and I'm not a kale guy yet, but I mean, obviously it's something you've studied and you practice on a daily, so kind of dive into like why that's important.
Yeah, my first year, my whole team made fun of me because I'd literally blend kale and yogurt, and I would drink it during the meeting, and they'd taste it and think it was disgusting, but it gave me so much energy, and I literally worked out every single morning. And
how do you do that in pest? Because don't you guys have your meeting at like 9 a.m.?
Yeah, the hours are pretty intense. Even Damon, one of my recruits, his top dog did 500 accounts, like totally smashed what I did my first year in the same time. He's one of the rookie record breakers. He's such a humble, low-key dude, but he wakes up super early, has an intense workout. He's drinking the vegetable juice, he's drinking the Kangen water, and I think if you can be in control of your body, if you can just get control of that in the morning, you're in control of your mind the rest of the day.
Yeah.
Because I need to get all 5'9", 150 pounds under control before I can be in control of my mind. And I find days I don't work out or when I slip up with my eating, I'm not in control of my thoughts. But if you have that good workout, if you're getting the correct macronutrients and you're getting lots of vitamins and minerals from real vegetables, it's really weird what I've noticed. You're in control of your thoughts and everything's positive. And I don't think it's just the beta endorphins. It's like a mindset of I'm in control of myself.
Yeah, it's like I'm winning. I could eat this hamburger. I chose to eat the salad.
Right.
Therefore, I'm better.
Yeah. And it shocks me how many people don't invest more in their health and fitness because it transforms who you are as a person and the energy you have to put in your job.
Yeah, because how much energy does it require to go be a top leader, a top performer?
A lot. And here's the thing, like when I work out, I'm just so pumped up after that workout. I just can't sit around, you know? I literally want to work until the day's done. And that's just me. I'm not someone who just wakes up and I'm, you know, the incredible business guy who just performs. I wake up like everyone else. I don't want to get up. But once I get that workout in, I get that good meal in, I really do feel totally in control that I can just dominate my day. And I think a lot of people, they could have that.
They could. And I think some people put their physical fitness on pause in the summer. And I'm like, that's when you need to double down. Because what happens is they're like, but I'm so just worn out because I'm like going hard and I knock. That's my workout. And
have you heard of Devin Adams? So he was one of Altera's all-time top reps, and then he went on to law school. He had it paid for because he earned enough money. He would run 7 to 15 miles every morning before knocking doors, where he would run door to door. He's someone who takes it to the extreme, but if that guy's going that hard, the least you could do is get in the gym.
30-minute workout.
Yeah.
Dude, that makes me feel so small. It's like,
right.
No, but that's the thing. It's like, it's how many people in your office would wake up at 8:50?
Dude, all years I've done this, I was the only person who was consistently working out in the morning.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And
it shocks me.
But then it's like, okay, so it's like you want to be the best. You got to do the things the best do. And you probably heard about this Devin Adams guy, and you're probably like, okay, if he could do that, I could do this, right?
Yeah.
And it just shows consistency, and I think it's like such a vital piece.
Yeah.
Now, let's dive into this summer. You had an interesting thing happen down under.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like thrown for a loop, and I want to kind of like talk on this.
This is so mysterious right now that you
I
said
know,
that.
most people are like, what are the things? Yeah, so what'd you have? What was this? I know, so people are like, this thing.
Yes.
What happened?
So I have candida. I have like a condition where my body produces way more yeast than it needs to produce. And
so it's like a
I don't even eat that much sugar. Like I don't eat any processed sugar or drink Coke. It's just something I developed, I guess. And weirdly enough, I think I developed it by going so hard my first summer.
Really?
Yeah.
Just you sweat your balls off. Literally sweat your balls off.
I think it changed something in I think I was so exhausted and kept pushing myself so hard that it changed something in me. Because after my first summer, I got, basically it's called jock itch or a yeast infection down there. And I had it until December. And it was terrible. Terrible. I tried everything. I visited like 7 different doctors. All the remedies are supposed to get rid of it like really quickly. It didn't happen for me because this is like a permanent issue in my body where it just produces too much yeast. So finally, I literally had to wait for it to get cold outside before it ever went away. And I would literally wobble when I walked. It was that painful. Or to have my roommate drive me to class. And I've never been more miserable than those like 4 months after the summer in my life. I'm such a happy guy, but I've never been so depressed because I live and breathe off of activity and working out.
Yeah, like doing stuff.
And like I couldn't do that, or I'd go work out and I'd be in excruciating pain. I'd have to get a ride back from the gym and then.
So this came back up this last summer, right? So you're sitting there having.
Great summer, by the way.
Yeah.
Team's doing well. I was doing the best I've ever done before. I was like on pace to get like 500 in about 12 to 14 weeks.
You get gnarly ball swells and yeast.
So I go to kind of shadow and train some of Damon's teams in Kansas City and Pittsburgh. And I think it was the travel, just sitting down, the sweat. And the really stupid mistake I made is I brought a towel that I used over and over again and kept in my suitcase.
Okay.
So that's what kind of triggered it. And then when I got back, it was just totally inflamed. And it crushed me. Not because I wanted to achieve my personal sales goals, but because I could not legitimately go out and knock every day. Because if you're in the heat and humidity, it just spreads. So it really crushed me because I had to be the guy who was staying in the apartment.
Yeah, and as a leader, you're sitting there like making fun of those dudes, and you're like, "Come on, pull your panties up," and now you're the one that's like bedridden.
Yeah.
So, how did you deal with that mentally, and like, what were some of the challenges in your like? How did you kind of say, "Okay, how do I see the gift in this?"
Yeah. So there was a gift in it. After all, kind of get to explain that. I still went out and knocked on cup days, and thank the Lord for the segues, because I just wouldn't have been able to knock. No matter how much determination I had, or no matter how much I wanted to win, the Segway really saved me, because it was just like a few steps up the stairs that I had to bear. But most of my days were literally spent on my couch with like a blow dryer pointed there.
Yeah, that's
like
crazy.
With the AC cranked on really, really high, like putting all sorts of tea tree oil and stuff on it. It's really a miserable thing. So it really wrecked me emotionally. This me getting to my sales goal wasn't a big deal, and I just thought, well, I'm not out there selling at a top pace anymore, because I'm a huge believer in leading by example. I think you'll have your best experienced reps follow you if you're selling at this level, and you'll have the 4 best rookies following them at that level, and then everyone else will be lifted. It's super important to me. So I just had a real talk with my leaders, and they're like, I'm going to go as hard as I can. And I've had some really incredible experienced reps who sell at a high level, so they kind of took over that position. And I just started really texting all my guys and connecting with them and asking them, how is the summer really going, rather than in passing, and really figuring out what we can do to take it to the next level, or if there are any loose ends I needed to tie up with them. I'd make like hamburgers or meals that they could come back to at night. I was doing anything that I could that wasn't selling and leading by example to help them. And they actually started doing slightly better. And their happiness actually improved. I saw that in them. And they were a lot more gracious to me. And they almost encouraged me to stay and like not go out for the cup. And I really felt a lot of appreciation from them for like everything I had done. And
So
I even invited people, like, because some people didn't believe me. Like this one dude was like, because I got on him for
being lazy.
Right. And then he didn't believe me, so I literally invited him to like come look at my balls. And he's like, "All right, I'm good. I believe you."
You're like, if you don't believe me, I will whip them out.
Yeah.
So here's the principle though that's super interesting is there's different levels of leaders, and there's an article that I'll share it with the link, and it's on Harvest Business Magazine or whatever, and it talks about there's pace setting leaders, and then there's like your type of leader where it's more like you don't like pace setting is like a lower tier leader actually than a higher leader that's actually showing empathy and true authenticity and true like care and serving at the highest level. Yeah. And you actually you were forced to shift from I have to be the pace setter to actually get to be a true leader. Yeah. And the higher level of leadership that you stepped into, you saw was actually more effective. Even though naturally in our brains we feel like I just need to be go, go, go. But it's actually what's happening is the reps now see that you're vested in them versus just vested in yourself. But it really is vested in them, right? We pay set for them, but they don't sometimes see that. They're like, oh, you don't get it. Yeah. So think of like how that helped you in retention, because and the gift that it was kind of towards the end of the summer, and now like the true value that those people got seeing you on a more intimate level. Yeah. Because when you're trying to be top rep and you're trying to crush it, the biggest problem is we run into is we forget about everything. We are so tunnel vision, but we got 30-something guys sitting there counting on us.
It's that OCD. Like the whatever it takes mindset. And it's funny because you're conditioned to put that towards sales in this environment. 100%. And then you go to lead and you want to do the same thing. But I was literally forced to put that OCD and to put that work ethic into the people on my team. Yeah. Like actually care about them. So now, I'm not saying I didn't do that before, but literally my whole focus was that. So it was a completely different shift, and I was forced to do that all out to actually experience what that's like to be as a leader.
And so now going into next year, let's say you don't have this cojones problem, and
I will.
You probably will, but let's just hypothetically say that was fixed. How would you lead your team differently?
Yeah. I've always debated, and my uncle, who's been a great mentor to me, he's so funny. We never have like long conversations, like big mentor conversations or sit down. He always just tells them to me in passing, like super randomly. Like he'll just walk past me and tell me this
one
nugget.
line, yeah.
And it's so cool how he does that. But one of them is he basically told me that extra 5% of effort can ruin you. It can ruin your marriage. It can ruin you as a leader. It can even ruin you as a performer. And I've always debated with that because my first year I was that 100%, not the 95%. But what I was always battling with, I was like, well, what if I didn't knock till 9:45? What if I came home and created an actual lesson for tomorrow's meeting? Or what if I took a real lunch and like texted everyone on my team? I always had those thoughts in my head, like how would that increase my team's well-being and their performance? But I never did it just because of that tick, like gotta be the best salesman. This is what I'm doing. Like you're just on that mission. But I was forced to just do that all in.
Yeah.
And it transformed my team. I don't think we would have made it to the finals of the cup if I didn't really get to know where everyone was at that time before going into the tournament.
Yeah. No, that's huge. So let's kind of wrap up on that. One last thing. I want to see it. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I'll show you my tea tree oil.
Okay, good.
My girlfriend, she kills me. Because all tea tree oils come in bottles, and like I literally have to like apply it and blow dry it. So I ordered some like spritzer bottles offline, and I'm like, I just invented this. Like I want to like sell it on Amazon and
tea tree spray oil.
Yeah, because
makes total sense.
Yeah, because I'm sure some other people are in the market and they just want to like the quick spray rather than the application.
Rub down. Yeah. That's awesome.
Because it gets on your hands and just even when you wash it.
Yeah. So let's just finish with like one thing. Like if you were, you have a big audience listening to this, and if you were to give one piece of advice to whether it's a first year rep that let's go like this. First year rep that's wanting to manage and he's scared out of his mind, you didn't know what you didn't know. I'm the top. I was a really good rookie. I'm going to go run a team. It's like, hold on. What advice would you give them? And let's kind of wrap up with that.
I'm just going to keep it
simple.
I'm going to keep it like super simple.
Yeah.
Put them first.
Put them first. Cool.
Simple.
Yeah.
So many people don't.
They don't. It's literally, and what happens is you lose all credibility with your guys when they feel like he's just in it for him. He's just in it for him. Yeah. And that piece of advice goes a long way.
One thing I do want to touch on is I kind of want to talk about the Geozilla thing, but I also
I want to talk about that.
I want to talk about my
bonus PS.
I want to talk about my the opposite of what I do to balance that out.
Yeah.
So I like to run a tight ship, and that's part of why some people didn't like me my first year, may not like me my second year. It's always going to happen. And it's part of the reason why we've had high performance teams, because they work all the hours. I train them really hard. I always encouraging them to study the manual, and I lead by example. One thing I did this year is I had the thought, what if I just track all my reps on a GPS? And I know it just seems like this Nazi kind of thing to do, but I talked to my parents about it, and I was like, I don't want this to be a thing that I force them to do. And my mom and dad were like, well, you should make it a positive reinforcement to where they have an option to do it, and you positively reinforce them if they do it. So I got the app situated, and it's an app that tracks people's location.
It's called what?
Geozilla.
And
there's literally a timestamp every 5 minutes. So it's not like,
T-Sheets is another one. Just whoever's listening to them, there's a few of them, but let's go on that one. Yeah.
There's a lot. So there's a timestamp every 5 minutes. So it's not like you just know they went to area. Like if they're actually out of their car or going to houses. So what I did is anyone who wanted to be a part of it, and I look back through the week after Saturday and I see that they worked all the hours and were knocking, I'd enter them into a lottery where I draw 4 names and have $1,000 lottery each week, and I'd literally shower $250 on 4 random people who did it.
And then people that aren't participating are sitting there going, right, I want to be part of that.
Yeah.
Dude, that's brilliant, because they're sitting there going, I don't want them to know I'm not working. You also don't want them to shower $250.
I told them it's cool. I'm like, this is a really hard job, and not everyone can do everything.
That is so cool.
Yeah, and thank the Lord for my parents telling me about the positive reinforcement and
yeah,
kind of consulting.
Not like micromanage. You didn't work out. Where you at? Where you at? Where you at? Why aren't you in area?
And that's kind of who I was my first year.
Yeah.
But the antithesis of that is not only did I invest money into making sure people are working the hours, I invested money into really awesome experiences on the weekend.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're gonna work super hard and they're rewarded for that, but we're gonna play really hard on the weekend. So, for instance, I bought an Airbnb for $2,000. That was Atlanta's largest penthouse. So I invited everyone to the penthouse, and we enjoyed a night there and like 2 nights in the city just hanging out. Or 2 different times I bought them concert tickets.
Yeah, because the summer's also got to be fun.
Yeah.
It can't just be so Nazi.
And I think that was putting an antithesis on it and investing money into their experience. The team was so tight. They were so tight because of that. And I think it's the reason why we were able to sustain really good performance all the way until the end. Because they were truly enjoying the experience and it wasn't like dragging on them like it does at the end.
The burnout,
yeah, because they were really genuinely having a blast, like times of their life every single weekend.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so invest in your team, both positive reinforcement and fun.
Cool. I love that little bonus PS. Okay. Well, I appreciate you being on the show,
Absolutely.
man. Like this has
is
been
awesome.
so fun to jam. And anybody out there that's in pest control, I mean, let's follow your journey for the next few years. This will be fun to watch.
Yeah.
14,000 to 20,000 or whatever your goals are.
Yeah.
That'll be a cool journey.
And I just want to say thanks for doing this podcast. I've learned a lot from you, and I've learned a tremendous amount from every single person who's been on these. And I think it's a really great cause to help each other out so effectively. I think it's really it's going to transform some people's careers. So I really appreciate you doing it.
Thanks, man. Okay. Dude, we did it.